The year is 897 AD Rome, a city of ancient grandeur and simmering intrigue. It's gripped by a tension so thick it seems to seep from the very stones. It's in the heart of the city, the Basilica of St. John Lateran, a place meant for worship and solace, is transformed into a theater of the macabre. The air is heavy with incense, but beneath the perfumed smoke, a darker scent, lingers the unmistakable odor of decay. He has orchestrated this unthinkable event, the Cadaver Synod, or Synoda Surrenda, a trial in which the dead are summoned to answer for their alleged crimes. Stephen's voice rings out, sharp and accusing, as he levels charges of perjury, ambition, and sacrilege at the corpse. The man on trial, even in death, was a figure both revered and reviled. By putting Formosus on trial, every taboo. And what would be the cost to the Church, to Rome, and to the souls who witnessed this unholy spectacle? In a world where the dead were to be respected, where the Church claimed to shepherd souls to salvation, what would happen when the verdict was reached? And how would the Church and the world respond to a ritual so dark, so unprecedented, that it would haunt history for centuries? Here was a pope desecrating his predecessor's body for all to see.
Yes.
The people of Rome watched, some in horror, some in grim fascination. What did it mean for their faith, for the authority of the Church? That a corpse could be put on trial? Was this justice, or something far darker? He could invalidate his rivals' decisions, delegitimize his supporters, and send a chilling message to anyone who dared oppose him. The Cadaver Synod was not just a legal proceeding. It was a grotesque performance, a public humiliation designed to terrify and control the boundaries between justice and vengeance, between the sacred and the profane, blurred and dissolved in the flickering candlelight. As Bishop of Portus, he was celebrated for his missionary zeal, but his political ambitions made him dangerous. He was excommunicated, then restored, his career a series of dramatic rises and falls. His greatest gambleland? Perhaps his undoing was inviting Arnulf of Carinthia, a Frankish king, to invade Italy and challenge the Speletan dynasty for the imperial crown. When Formosus crowned Arnulf as Holy Roman Emperor, he struck a blow against the Speletans, but also made himself their mortal enemy. The crowd, stunned into silence, watches as a deacon trembling, Palax as the defender for the dead, forced to respond on behalf of the lifeless pope. After Arnulf's sudden illness and retreat, the Speletan faction, led by the young Lambert and his formidable mother, Agiltrude, regained control of Rome. Formosus died soon after, leaving behind a city divided and a papacy in peril. But death was not enough to end the feud. The Speletans, determined to erase Formosus's legacy, found a willing ally in Stephen VI, a pope whose own position was anything but secure. At the front, where a living pope would normally preside, sits a figure draped in the ceremonial robes of the papacy. But this is no ordinary pontiff. This is the exhumed body of Pope Formosus, dead for 7 months, his skin stretched tight over bone, his hands twisted in the grip of rigor mortis. His lifeless form is propped upright on a throne, dressed in the finest vestments, a grotesque parody of the office he once held. On this day, the sacred and the profane collide in a spectacle that will echo through the centuries, a trial, not of a living man, but of a corpse. Picture the scene. The basilica's vast nave is crowded with clergy, nobles and commoners, all drawn by a rumor too shocking to ignore. The answer lies in the chaos of late 9th century Italy. The papacy, far from being a stable spiritual authority, is a prize fought over by powerful Roman families and ambitious outsiders. The throne of St. Peter is less a seat of holiness and more a battleground, where alliances shift and betrayals are commonplace. Before him stands Pope Stephen VI, the current pontiff, his face a mask of anger and determination. How did the Church, the supposed guardian of souls and morality, arrive at this moment of horror? Formosus. The political landscape was a labyrinth of shifting loyalties and simmering vendettas. Stephen VI's motives were as much about survival as revenge. The spectacle defied every expectation as the accusations mounted and the trial unfolded. One question hung heavy in the air. How far would Stephen VI go to erase his enemy's memory? The trial of Pope Formosus was only just beginning. the worst was yet to come. The trial begins, and the basilica is silent, except for the echo of Pope Stephen VI's voice. Sharp and relentless as he hurls accusation after accusation at the corpse of Formosus. The charges are grave, violating canon law by leaving his original bishopric, perjury, and coveting the papal throne. Each word is a weapon, aimed not only at the dead man before him, but at every living supporter of Formosus, still lurking in Rome's shadows. A trembling deacon, forced to act as Formosus's defender, stands by the corpse. His hands shake as he tries to answer for a man who cannot speak, his words barely audible over the murmur of the crowd. The corpse of Formosus is found guilty on all counts. The dead pope's fingers, which once blessed the faithful, are hacked off, an act meant to sever his connection to the sacred. The body is dragged from the throne, its dignity utterly destroyed, and cast into a common grave. For Stephen and his allies, it is a moment of triumph. For others, it is a moment of horror that will not be easily forgotten. The sentence is as shocking as the trial itself. All acts and ordinations performed by Formosus are declared invalid. The trial of a dead pope, the mutilation of his body, the chaos unleashed upon the church, these are the marks of a society in crisis, a faith tested to its breaking point. As Rome reels from the shock, one question remains: what will be the price of this madness, and who will pay it? For the clergy forced to participate, the event is a nightmare violation of everything they believe sacred. The seeds of Stephen's downfall have been sown, and the city is about to witness another dramatic turn. The consequences of the Cadaver Synod will reach far beyond the basilica, shaking the very foundations of the church and changing the course of history. The stage is set for retribution, and the shadow of Formosus will not rest quietly in his grave. For the people of Rome, it is a sign that the world has been turned upside down, that the church itself can be corrupted by hatred and fear. Whispers spread through the city. If a pope can be tried after death, who is safe? If the dead can be desecrated, what hope is there for the living? Every bishop he appointed, every decision he made, is to be undone. In other parts of Christendom, bishops and kings react with disbelief and disgust. The desecration of Formosus' corpse is seen by many as an affront, not just to the man, but to the dignity of the papal office itself. Even those who opposed Formosus in life begin to question the wisdom of Stephen's actions. The church, meant to be a beacon of hope and stability, is now a source of fear and uncertainty. The authority of the papacy, already fragile, is further undermined. Some see Stephen's actions as a necessary purge, a way to restore order. Stephen VI, having unleashed forces he cannot control, finds himself increasingly isolated. The very spectacle that was meant to secure his power begins to erode it. When we're growing, when we're to write a railway wall, we're right, we're to I cried over it. The grotesque ritual, intended as a warning, becomes a rallying cry for Stephen's enemies. Others see them as madness, a sign that the church has lost its way. The ramifications are immediate and devastating. Clergy loyal to Formosus are stripped of their positions. The legitimacy of entire dioceses is thrown into chaos. The church, already teetering on the edge, is plunged into deeper turmoil. The absurdity of the scene is matched only by its horror. A lifeless body, dressed in sacred vestments, accused of crimes it cannot deny or defend. Some testify to Formosus's supposed ambitions, his secret dealings, his willingness to defy the established order. Others, more hesitant, speak of his piety and his attempts to bring stability to a fractured church. But the outcome is never in doubt. The verdict has been decided long before the trial began. The ritual becomes more than a trial, it is a spectacle of humiliation, a calculated act of vengeance meant to erase Formosus from memory and history. Stephen's anger is not merely personal. Every gesture, every word is designed to send a message to the city and the church. The Speletan faction watches with satisfaction, seeing their enemies disgraced. But others in the audience, clergy loyal to Formosus, ordinary Romans, even some of Stephen's own supporters are unsettled. The boundaries of decency and faith have been shattered. What was once unthinkable is now unfolding before their eyes, and the sense of unease grows with every passing moment. The trial drags on for days. Witnesses are called, many of them coerced or intimidated. As the proceedings reach their climax, Stephen VI delivers his judgment. But Stephen is not finished. In a final act of symbolic destruction, he orders the papal vestments stripped from Formosus's corpse. The psychological impact on those present is profound. The wider consequences ripple outward. News of the Cadaver Synod spreads quickly, carried by merchants, pilgrims, and envoys. Days pass, the mood in Rome shifts from shock to anger. But the story does not end with the burial of Formosus's body. The Cadaver Synod stands as a moment when the pursuit of power eclipsed all sense of humanity and decency. The answer is not long in coming. The desecration of Formosus's corpse was meant to be the final word, a public erasure of a rival, a warning to all who might challenge the new order. But in Rome, the horror of the Cadaver Synod refused to fade. The city, already battered by years of intrigue and violence, was shaken to its core. The very allies who had urged him to act against Formosus began to distance themselves, fearing the backlash. The clergy, outraged by the desecration of a pope's remains and the invalidation of sacraments, turned against him. The church, reeling from the scandal, scrambled to undo the damage. Stephen's immediate successors annulled the verdicts of the Cadaver Synod and restored Formosus's honor. It asks uncomfortable questions about authority, legitimacy, and the lengths to which people will go to secure their place in history. It forces us to confront the fragility of institutions, the dangers of unchecked power, and the enduring human fascination with the macabre. The image of Formosus's corpse, dressed in papal robes and forced to answer for his life, remains a powerful symbol, a warning from the past that echoes into our present. In the end, the trial of a dead pope became a trial of the living, a test of faith, morality, and the resilience of a community shaken by horror. The mutilated corpse was recovered from its unmarked grave and reburied with dignity in St. Peter's Basilica. The acts and ordinations of Formosus were declared valid once more, and the Church sought to erase the memory of the grotesque trial from its official history. What lines are we willing to cross in the pursuit of power, and what are the costs when we do? The Cadaver Synod is a reminder that history, strangest stories are often its most revealing, illuminating not just the past, but the shadows that linger in every age. The people, haunted by the image of a corpse on trial, demanded justice for the dead. And when institutions meant to uphold justice become instruments of cruelty, for centuries, the story haunted the papacy, a cautionary tale whispered in the corridors of power, a reminder of how quickly the sacred can become profane. The papal throne, which Stephen had tried to secure through fear, now became a seat of peril. Whispers of outrage and disbelief spread through the streets and cloisters. The faithful, once united in reverence for the papal office, now looked upon it with suspicion and fear. The spectacle that was supposed to solidify Stephen VI's rule instead marked the beginning of his rapid downfall. The psychological wounds inflicted by the trial festered. For the clergy forced to participate, the event became a stain on their souls, a memory of obedience twisted into complicity. For the Roman people, it was proof that even the highest office in Christendom could be corrupted by hatred and vengeance. The boundaries between sacred and profane, between justice and madness, had been obliterated. In the weeks that followed, the mood in Rome grew increasingly volatile, the city teetering on the edge of revolt. Stephen VI, once emboldened by his display of power, soon found himself isolated. Retribution came swiftly. Within months of the Cadaver Synod, Stephen VI was arrested by his enemies. Stripped of his papal vestments and thrown into a dark cell, he was left to contemplate the consequences of his actions. In August 897, less than a year after the infamous trial, Stephen was strangled to death in prison, another victim of the violence and chaos he had helped unleash. His reign, marked by cruelty and spectacle, ended in disgrace and obscurity. But the story of the Cadaver Synod did not end with Stephen's death. Yet the shadow of the Cadaver Synod lingered. The event became a symbol of the dangers that arise when power is pursued at any cost. When vengeance overrides mercy, the legacy of the Cadaver Synod is not just a footnote in church history. It is a mirror reflecting the darkest corners of human ambition and fear. Even now, more than 1,000 years later, the Cadaver Synod stands as one of history's most bizarre and unsettling episodes. What does it say about us that such a spectacle could unfold at the heart of the world's most powerful church?